What's going on, guys? Tower number 9 here, and today I am joined by Chrispy, who had a recent Store Showdown win at the Collective down in Florida, and he won with Fennec Shand, a leader that I think a lot of people were not that hype about when she first came out, and I'm here to interview him and share how it happened. So, Chris, what do you think?
Wow, thanks for the introduction, Tower. I think that Fennec has been a long underrated leader. I've been playing her ever since set 2. I even brought her to the set 2 PQ because I thought she was that good, and I'm
Nice.
really excited to see, the updates that we get in set 3 and how far we can, take her and update this deck and, see if we can go win anything bigger with it.
Nice, yeah. I remember we were talking about this a little bit before this video, but I remember seeing some of your updates on the KTOD Discord with the thread for Fennec Shand, and you've been cooking on it for a while, and now you've had a nice result. So how did the event go?
Oh, it was a great event, honestly. Like Orlando has such a great community, so like everyone there I'm like super good friends with. So we were all laughing, having a good time. Early on, it looked, pretty rough. Where I ran into a couple bad matchups early, a lot of grindy headache games, and I just about like crashed out and just said like, all right, there's no way I'm going to be able to make it. And then powered through the rest of Swiss. Snuck 8th into a top 8 cut, and then
Nice.
just powered on from there. Didn't drop a game in the cut, and felt really good to end a long day.
Awesome, congratulations. So yeah, let's take a look at the deck list here. I think it should be visible on screen for the viewers here. So you went with a Fennec Shand Tarkintown deck, and
Yep.
yeah, I see here that you have a lot of the Rebel package in this build with kind of the classics like the Green Squadron A-Wing, the Fleet Lieutenant, Wing Leader, stuff like that. What made you come to this composition?
So I've been testing her a lot with Fennec with other colors. Originally it started in green and trying to do a whole bunch of green also has some more passive ambush.
Yeah.
With ECO as well, so you could ambush something else without having to pay for it. And eventually I figured out that Red 3 makes such a difference in so many games. Like that Raid 1, getting that on so many different things where you're able to ambush and kill things that your opponent wouldn't expect them to get killed by.
Yeah.
It makes the math way more different. And like Tarkintown is also such a great piece where if there's something big that you normally can't ambush to finish cleanly, you can ambush something smaller into it, Tarkintown to kill it, and that way you're not having to spend too many resources trying to ambush multiple units over multiple turns into a large unit like a Luke or a Cad. You can just ambush like a rogue operative and do it once and then Tarkintown.
Yeah, I think we've seen a big resurgence in Tarkintown recently. Not everyone that was even playing Red early on was running it, but there are a lot of Tarkintown decks these days, especially with like some of those ping damage effects and stuff. But Fennec isn't a ping damage deck, but Tarkintown is still just a really good base.
Yeah, you're constantly swinging into units, and so even if if you get the kill and then your unit is wounded and sitting around, and they have another unit swing into that, you can then threaten the Tarkintown to essentially have your unit 2 for 1, instead of just coming in wounded and then dying to the next attack.
Yeah. So one interesting thing about this build is looking at it, I also notice that a overwhelming majority of the cards are actually from the first 2 sets. I think the only set 3 card in the main board, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have 2 copies of Plo Koon here, and then you have a few copies of the new Cunning Sabine Wren unit in the sideboard. So have you found other set 3 cards not to be as worth it, or what exactly there?
So at the start of set 3, I had a town hall with a whole bunch of other Fennec players
Nice.
from the KTOD Discord, and we sort of we looked at all of our options, like clear the field, breaking in, all the new cards that could be going into this.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think we divided out into like 3 teams where it was the as close to home of set 1 and set 2 cards as possible. Then we did sort of a mixed bag, and then someone tried a full
really
mix
innovative,
of, like,
really new.
If it looks like if it's from set 3 and it looks like it can help, it's going in.
Gotcha.
Even like abandoning the Rebel package to see if like the new R2 is really good. Because like that's a body that can come out, ambush something, and stick around.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like,
you can take out like a 3/2 unit pretty easily with it, and there's still a fair few of those being run.
Yep. Or even just as a finisher where you get some 1 damage on any 3 health unit that R2 can come in and clean out. And I was sort of leading the charge for the close to home, keeping the Rebel package, seeing essentially testing 1 by 1 changes into the list.
Yep.
And Plo Koon immediately, right off the bat, earned a spot.
He's a star. He's really good.
Yeah, the main issue that Fennec has been having before are the other 5 deploy leaders that come out and just kill her. So like Han essentially deploys on 5. Both Hans kind of deploy on 5. Bosk as well. And with Fennec being a 4/4 body, those 4/6 bodies just flip out and kill her. So having a 6 damage answer in Plo Koon that can simply fly onto the board, take out that leader, and that leaves Fennec for a safe flip. Really having that threat increase the ceiling of what we could do with this deck.
Nice.
Rather than having to live in fear of leaders, we had an answer to a lot of those leaders that could come out and scare Fennec. And even in this meta, having a red 3 on board makes that Plo Koon kill Quinlins and Jangos.
Nice.
And that's insane. And
that's a good point of one of those situations that, like you were describing, the extra raid from red 3 lets you hit that breakpoint and do a ton of damage.
Yep. The new Sabine I really liked. I pushed her to the side just because I was scared of a lot of decks, and so I wanted Kira in the main. To call out those like super important cards. Like Overwhelming Barrage is probably one of the most devastating cards to this deck. We're constantly ambushing. We've got units on low health. If you stick 1 unit around an OB, it's gonna kill 3 units. Not
something that you want to let in.
Yeah, so that was one where I think we needed main board just to have a way to counter that.
So tell me about Cartel Turncoat here. What role has that card played for you?
Oh, this I love Cartel Turncoat. A lot of other people don't like Cartel Turncoat in the list. They don't like giving the card to the opponent, but he's very versatile. I will say he's very useful in going wide, especially against these ping decks where I need to have multiple units at a time. Being able to just throw them down for 1 is really important. And even then, like, there's a lot of situations where I'm looking to ambush a unit, I'm holding a unit in hand, like a rogue operative, and I want to ambush it on 4 resources, but my opponent doesn't play anything into the ground on 4. So I just have that extra resource lying around that I was waiting to use, that can be used to now play a unit, which is very, very handy. And another thing is he's really, really good to ambush with. He one-shots Lurking TIE Phantoms, which is incredible. It's an insane value generator where they play a Lurking TIE Phantom for 3 and I can ambush it for 2. And it leaves a unit around. And even when I have red 3, once again, red 3 coming in, making all these units better, he... with red 3 on the board, Cartel Turncoat ambushes into other red 3s. He ambushes into A-Wings. He can kill Cartel Turncoats as well. He is suddenly the best trade piece on the planet. Being able to ambush him for cheap. One cost. And with Fennec on the board, that is a 1-cost ambush.
You can turn one jump on something. It's like if someone is doing you see those, they haven't been that prominent these days, but those Tarkin decks where they try to build up space units. If they play a TIE fighter, you can ambush it with a turncoat and kill it before they get a chance to buff.
Yeah, Tarkin Yellow being big in Orlando last set, that came in many times, and even against a lot of these decks that aren't Tarkintown, like against Sabine Yellow, if they play an A-Wing turn 1, I would happily ambush a Cartel Turncoat into it in Tarkintown. Quickly kill their first turn play, leave a unit on board, and just that, like, from there, that kills a lot of momentum into these aggro decks, being able to just ambush and kill their first turn play in space. Having a 1-drop in space is very important.
Yeah, pro tip if you're playing against this deck, by the way, Lurking Tai Phantom is a very bad card against Fennec Shand. It's like
It's
legitimately
free.
terrible. Like,
It is free value for me. I will eat that up all day.
yeah, every space unit you have can ambush and kill it, or the Falcon. The Falcon doesn't even need to ambush. You can just play it normally and kill it. And all of those except the wing leaders also survive doing that. So it's extremely unfavorable for the Lurking Tai Phantom player.
Yeah, unless you have a way to like, I'm tapped out and you can play it and then like also buff it somehow, then it can survive. But yeah, if you just play it and I've got a space unit in hand, you bet that I'm just removing that Phantom immediately.
Yeah, not the finest matchup for that Phantom.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, so Sabine ran the Cunning unit. That's another set 3 card. Tell me more about that one and its role in this deck.
Yeah, so I really like Sabine in this deck for a lot of different reasons. She is really good against decks that like to go wide. She can ambush out, attack into one unit, and then have that discard off the top of the deck to do 2 damage to another unit, with 60% of the deck being non-red cards. It's a pretty good odds that I like to, be able to get that 6 damage for 4+2. I had her in the main board for a long time, except I wanted Kira in to help prevent some of those big cards that wipe out the board that I'm trying to set up, like Overwhelming Barrage, just to be safe. But I really like I really like Sabine in the side here for Fennec. That 2-for-1, sometimes being able to swing for 6, like Plo, in case I need another way to deal 6 damage to a unit. And also, just I like her at the end of games where I can just put her down. She's exhausted, and my opponent has to claim to try to attack her while she's ready, unless they have from hand removal for her. Because there are games where I'm able to stick her down, and if my opponent doesn't immediately get rid of her, I can throw a blaster on her, have her swing for 6. She's exhausted, and then if they don't have removal, I just claim and swing right again. And she's very good at closing out games, very very sneakily.
Yeah, and I can see why that would be really annoying for some opponents to deal with, especially if they have like a blue deck with a bunch of like direct removal from hand, maybe not. But a lot of decks are thinking, oh, I'm going to just clear out your units with like normal combat, and Sabine is very difficult to deal with in that fashion. At least as long as you have the initiative.
Yeah, Palp Green is one of those decks that doesn't have a lot of from-hand removal. They're just going to ramp up and try to play big units like Reinforcement Walker that's going to come out and swing and take care of my units. Sabine is able to get around that
Yeah.
pretty efficiently.
Yeah, and like, if they don't have Overwhelming Barrage, maybe they do, but if they don't, what are they going to do? It could be pretty tough for them. Okay, so then Spare the Target. This card is similar to
Yep.
Waylay, but it I've noted here that it benefits if the opponent has bounties, but you don't have any bounties. So is this to punish cards that have built-in bounties like Hylabon Enforcers, or what was your thinking with that?
So the main reason why I have Spare the Target over Waylay is to get the hero aspect in the deck. I main deck 3 copies of For a Cause I Believe in, so I'm trying to get as many hero cards in the deck as possible to make sure that For a Cause is hitting super efficiently. The only non-hero cards in the deck that I have are 2 copies of Hotshot and 3 copies of Surprise Strike.
And those are excellent cards.
Yeah, and they all make up the 1 damage that I'm missing by providing, a pump to another unit of mine. So I'm perfectly fine with those being in there. But yeah, having that hero aspect there helps hit with For a Cause, and I don't see many issues with having to, bounce my own units.
Right. Occasionally against Bosk, it might come up, or if they have like top target on somebody, you might plausibly want to waylay your own unit, but it's a very niche thing. It doesn't happen very often.
Which is why I have Ketsu in the sideboard for Bosk and bounties.
Sweet. That's your upgrade removal solution, Ketsu Anyo.
Yep.
Yeah, and she has the advantage of also being heroism, unlike Confiscate or the Disabling Fang Fighter. And that's an interesting little tech.
Yeah, unfortunately, she doesn't get rid of Perilous Position, which is the main upgrade that a lot of these control decks are using. But she does get rid of these top. She does get rid of top targets, which a lot of especially non-boss decks like Ray or Kira or sometimes even Krennic are using these top targets.
Yeah, it's like a supplemental healing card for a lot of decks, even if they don't have a bounty strategy.
Yep, and she's just really good against those, and she swings for 3 with Saboteur. She does a good job. She has a lot of rolls.
Nice. Okay, so then yeah, that seems very cool. So what are we thinking here with the sideboarded L3s? What when do you bring those in?
So I like the L3s coming in for any of these Ping Tarkintown style decks. This is the Django Tarkintown, the Cad Tarkintown, and the Quinlan Tarkintown. They thrive and they're really rough matchups for me if my opponent is able to essentially ping my first turn play,
Right.
then get a Tarkintown, and then, I'm behind on board. I have to start ambushing in to make up for it. Now, my units are weaker, more uh, prone to them being pinged to death by my opponent. So I like L3 to at least, cement a unit on board so I can start pushing damage to base. Um, Although I will say most of the people in the Fennec group that I've been talking to have L3 in the main. I really like R2, Cartel, and 3PO.
Hmm.
As I think they've secured their spot in the main. A lot of people will drop Cartel or R2 for it. But I really like the one drops. They help me go wide against these ping decks as well. Um,
Yeah.
so often it'll be 3PO coming out for L3.
I'm curious if you've given any thought to Leia Organa Defiant Princess in here.
She was in here earlier. The issue that we were having were 2 health units. They died to a lot, which is like, and that was why La Fallen Surgeon also was removed.
Hmm.
Um, I want to maximize health so that way I can ambush out and they're more likely to survive.
Gotcha.
Because I want to attack and defeat a unit and leave a unit on board. Although the ambush to kill something and then exhaust something else is really powerful, I would
Yeah.
rather be like I feel like I'd only be wanting to use the Leias if I were really behind and I
Got it.
needed to like
Okay.
make up a lot on tempo.
And you're trying to be proactive and aggressive and don't want those sorts of cards as much. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Correct.
It's definitely a very aggro deck, in the style of some of
Mm-hmm.
the older Sabine decks and stuff. I think the highest cost thing in the whole deck is Plo Koon at 5, and most of it and almost all of it's 4 or less.
Yep. Every unit has the threat of being ambushed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because Plo Koon already has it, and everybody else is eligible for Fennec's ability.
Yep.
Daring Raid, when do you bring that one in?
So once again, that's really good against these Django decks that go all space. There are even some like Kylo and Asages running around that are super heavy on the 3/2s in space. You got the mercenary gunships, you got the Kylo silencers.
Yeah.
I really like the daring raids for those matchups. Um, just to help remove units from space, help essentially just clear out the board, and then once I've got a clear board and I can start developing my own board, if they try to bring those units back, I have enough resources to ambush bigger units into them.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. So why don't we move on from discussing the deck list itself? This is very cool. Let's move on and start discussing some of the matchups.
Yeah.
What would you consider to be like a really good matchup and a really bad matchup for this build?
So probably the best matchup are the red blue hero sets. Um, so that would be your Anakin, your Reys, your Han 2 blues, your Ray Tarkintown as well. Um, Especially like I think Han 2 blue has got to be the easiest matchup because we're keeping Han honest with Tarkintown, and if he tries to cheat out anything like a Poe super early, that can be met with an ambushed Rogue Op. So him trying to use his ability can be offset by my ability, and because I'm going to be able to flip out and get all that extra damage going, and with the tempo that I get from these ambushes, it's going to be able to take over the board, and he's not going to have a chance. And especially if I get a Kira or a Spark out, and I'm able to rip away a play from his hand like a Luke that he wants to cheat out, I can very quickly overwhelm the board, and he's not going to have a play back into the game.
Nice. Okay.
Worst matchup is going to be Cad Tarkintown. There
That's a
are
tough one for
ways.
aggro in general. Tough one for aggro.
Yeah. between Django Tarkintown and Quinlan Tarkintown, there is some counterplay for me to like aggressively mull for good cards.
Yep.
Against Quinlan, I can go try to search for a one drop that they're less likely to have, so I can play like an R2 or a Cartel. And even if they have a one drop, that's fine. But they're going to be holding on to a two drop. And if I'm able to search for a one drop, I get an R2 to stick. I can then play a wing leader behind that, and now I've got a unit that can stick around on board, can't get Tarkintown early, and I can push from there.
I see.
Django, same thing. He's also super reliant on that triple dark raid. And he's got a lot of those. He's got a lot of pings that can, go out quickly, but he's not going to guarantee a ping on the first turn. Like, he can have a crafty or he can have a gunship. Where he's developing board, but he's not pinging. Cad will always ping first turn.
Yeah, I mean, unless they got
ping.
insanely unlucky and just don't have a starting card. And like, I think with their normal distribution, they're probably over 95% once they mulligan. So you should not be relying on Cad to not ping you.
Yeah, I have to in game one. I have to aggressively mulligan to find 2 1-drops. I have to find double Cartel or Cartel R2.
Okay.
Even if I just like play Sabine and just like eat the Tarkintown, he's gonna have ways to ambush in. Like Forlom is often just a board wipe because he's able to ping again, have Crafty or whatever swing into whatever my next turn play is, and then Forlom will kill the next unit that I play, ping again, and by the time that I Fennec flip, I won't have a board, and he'll have maybe 1 to 2 units.
Not where you want to be.
Yeah, the side gives me L3 as a way out, as an extra unit in there. So I have, more options to try to survive that first turn. Once I get a unit to stick, I can generally try to make it close. But if they're able to Tarkintown that first unit away, it looks really bad unless I have like an immediate ambush, like a Sabine to ambush out and kill a Crafty, but then it's still on 1, so he has to have another play to ping, and I always want to be I always want to be on the same units or 1 unit ahead, and with Cad, I'm always 2 units behind.
Yeah. So what happens, let's say that you're playing this deck and your opponent sitting across from you takes out Sabine ECL and it's a war of 2 aggressive decks. Like what do you see your role as in that matchup?
I'm definitely the control player there. I start going to base on the Fennec flip. The Tarkintown is going to hold a lot of things hostage, like ECL Poe if he tries to go after my Cassian or my K2. I just have an easy Tarkintown answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm able to take over space way faster than Sabine is. If they play an A-Wing on 2, I claim and I ambush my A-Wing on 3. If they play a Red 3 on 3, I claim and I ambush Red 3 on 4. And there's ways where if she just tries to commit to the ground, if I put a Red 3 in space and ambushed Rogue Op kills Sabine immediately on the flip and survives, which is once again just showing the power of how important Red 3 is to this deck. It makes Red 3 gives raid to the Rogue Op to have raid 3, and then Rogue Operative can come in and immediately kill Sabine on the flip.
When you were talking about that first, I was like, man, yeah, Red 3 Rogue Operative, that's 5 damage against a Sabine. That adds up.
Yeah. Also with Bamboozle in the deck, it's a weapon against Wing Leader plays. It's a pretty if they Wing Leader on 3 and I have the discard Bamboozle, and I have a ton of yellow cards in this deck, where if I get a free exhaust, remove the XP, and then I can ambush another unit out, that's pretty much a blowout. There's no way that they're able to get back into the game. Just because I'll have complete control of the board. They won't have any units, and then they have to deploy Sabine into an empty board that I'm probably going to ambush another unit into her right away.
Yeah, Bamboozle on a Darksaber is also very strong. I was able to pull that off a few times at my PQ, and it not where you want to be as the Sabine player there.
Yeah, every now and then Sabine can scrape a game away off me if I don't it's like there's a lot of cards that I can't have in order for them to win, so I feel fairly confident. Although last set I did have Principled Outlaw, which was a huge piece against Sabine. I feel confident enough against Sabine that I didn't need it, and so I pulled it out for Plo for this set.
Okay.
So
yeah, Plo giving you the bigger punch against the Hans and stuff like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, and even if they're going to throw down a Wrecker, right? I can have Poe go kill the Wrecker, or if I want to use my Tarkintown for something else, I can have Plo kill Poe. So like there are other uses for Plo in the deck, but often I do like pulling Sabine unit from the side, because if Sabine unit ambushes in to kill their Sabine leader, and I have no other ground units, they can't ECL Poe the turn. So they have to pass, and wait for Fennec to flip in order to have an ECL target. Otherwise, they just have to play Poe normally.
Interesting.
So I do like Sabine in that matchup. I'll often pull her in for like a wing leader, or two.
That cunning unit Sabine.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Very cool stuff. What was your so you mentioned that earlier on you said that you had some tough matchups early on in the tournament. Were those like those CAD Tarkintowns that you were talking about, or what exactly happened there?
Yeah. So first game of the day, I played against Maul ECL, which is generally about 50-50. If I can keep them away from an OB, it's good. And I ended up winning that in game 3. I had a very rough game 1. I had a couple misplays that, looking back, I'm so upset about. And then I ended up winning. I ended up winning game 2 and game 3. So already, like, not feeling great. Went into a Django Tarkintown in round 2. He had some incredible lines in games 1 and 3. Triple Dark Raid to find a Raider on 4 and then sneak it out on 5. He did that in games 1 and 3.
That's harsh.
Yeah, and I didn't find Bamboozle or Kira or Spark, so I had no way to counter that. And it just ran me over. And so, like, it felt really bad. Like, I know that line is coming, and I know I have counterplay, and I didn't find any of it. Which felt bad. And then round 3, I went straight into a CAD Tarkintown, and game 1 missed first turn play. Just didn't even eat the Tarkintown. Didn't have it.
That's harsh.
Yeah. So it was after that I felt really rough. And then I played a Jin Red in round 4.
Jin Urso.
Jin Urso. That was a good pick-me-up game. Essentially playing a similar set to mine, except I'm always ambushing, so he's never actually getting any Jin value, because the moment he plays a unit, it's gonna die to an ambush.
Yeah, Jin is a monster in draft, but in constructed, she hasn't really found her footing in the same way. And like you said, I think your deck is like kind of doing a similar sort of thing, but in a way that really gets around what his deck's trying to do. So tough matchup for Jin, I think.
Yeah, those matches were done pretty quickly. And then I think my last round was a Dooku Blue that took me by surprise. Game 1 really ran me over. And then game 2 and 3 were long, grindy matchups. For a Cause being like the most important card in the deck. I've seen a lot of people that put For a Cause to the side and put like Daring Raids in. But like, having For a Cause, look at my top 4 cards, find 2 K2s, put those 2 on top, I then draw them, and then immediately ambush them for Overwhelm through my opponent's droids for Overwhelm,
nice.
And then K2 dies, and yeah, like For a Cause being able to find a pair of K2s a turn early, essentially just solidified the game. That I could Overwhelm one through a droid and then play K2 immediately after killing the previous K2 and doing, a whole bunch of damage from hand that my opponent has no counterplay to.
Yeah, that's crazy. I hadn't even thought about K2 ambushing droids. That's really strong.
Yeah, like K2 is one of those cards where you gotta have a really good reason to resource them. Being able to have that ambush Overwhelm, and there's some really fun reaches where if you're able to have him ambush to Overwhelm through a unit and also die, he can do 5 or 6 damage to base directly from an ambush, and even more with Red 3. I think my record is a 7 damage ambush off of a K2 one time, because I had Red 3 raid, he overwhelmed for 3, and then he died as well on like a unit with 4 more power, and he died and did 3 more to base. So it was a 7 damage, 1 action from hand. It was pretty fun. And that's the kind of reach. It's the kind of reach that gives this deck a lot of hope, and it's very resilient. So looking at the deck, there are 15 cards, so 5 cards, all 3 copies, that can do damage to base without having to be on board to start. So that's Cassian and Falcon, that both come on the board ready and swing. You have For a Cause, obviously, and then you have Sabine and K2 that both ambushing from hand do damage to base.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those are not like guaranteed damage cards for some other leaders necessarily. If you play, I mean, K2 often is, but sometimes the opponent will be able to exhaust him or bounce him or something, and you won't get that value. But with the ambush, it becomes a very different story.
Yeah, like if you just, if you're in a Sabine and you just play K2 and then the opponent just plays top target on it and then swings into K2 and then heals it all back, like you're not able to, really take advantage of K2, but being able to immediately say, all right, I'm going to ambush and I'm going to overwhelm through this unit, or I'm going to ambush into your Snoke. Like, you've locked out the game, I'm going to ambush K2 into Snoke and just do 3 damage to base, and that's all I need.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So, I think we had discussed this briefly, but one other question I have now that we're looking at this deck list again, the deck name here, Better Than Fentanyl. So fentanyl with 2 N's, that's a pun on Fennec Shand.
Yeah.
But what was the original fentanyl deck that this deck is better than?
So the original one was a Fennec Green build that I had. Once again, keeping to the Rebel synergy with like Battlefield Marines, trying to figure out how to ambush Battlefield Marines and other units. And then rely on like U-wing reinforcement at the end of the game. And the issue that I had was it was just a little shy on damage every time. It never had the reach. Like with it just I could go for U-wing reinforcement. I could do long grindy games, but I could never do damage to their base from hand. And then I switched over to red, and being able to have 4 Cause and K2 and Sabine instantly changed my mind. And so
Very
this
cool.
deck is simply better than that.
Yeah, that makes sense as to why that would be the name then. Okay. That's some cool stuff. One other question. Have you ever considered, you have a lot of Rebel synergy there, but you don't have all of it. You know what I mean? Have you ever considered doing Medal Ceremony or maybe General Dodonna in there? What are your thoughts on those cards?
Dodonna was in here on the first draft. Even in the green build, he was really, really strong. The issue is that 4-cost slot is just so competitive. There's
it's
lots
crowded.
of different so my deck has like K2, obviously that can't leave. My deck is Kira in the main and Sabine in the side. Principled Outlaw, that was what I was playing last set. There's also Valiant Assault Ship, which is really, really good against these ramp decks. Also a unit that can ambush. Because it is 4 cost, and it's got Saboteurs, so you can ambush it to kill like 7 Fleet Defenders. So it's really, really good in that aspect. But and I think after that I had Dodonna. It was just, there are a lot of times where Dodonna is really good when the board is really good. And he's more of a win harder card. I can't just play Dodonna by himself and he's going to make an impact. Meanwhile, I can play Kira and she will immediately make an impact. Or I'll play Sabine and now she can't be attacked and now she's going to be able to attack next turn for free. Dodonna just felt like he's really good when I'm already doing pretty well. And I just wanted to have more all-round where, I want to have a card that will make an impact the moment I play it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, what would you? Let's say someone's watching this video and they think, "Hey, this is a cool concept." But they don't know that much about Fennec. They think your deck is cool, but what would you say? What's like the compelling reason to play Fennec right now, in your opinion?
Oh gosh, so I would say that she's an aggro deck with tricks. When in doubt, if you don't know what to do, just play Blonde Sabine lines. Play your Sabine, play your Red 3, play your K2, play your Wing Leader, play your Fleet Lieutenant. Just be Sabine and play honestly. But in the cases where you don't want to play Sabine against a lot of these mid-range decks that are going to have, advantages or strengths into Sabine, you don't have to play like Sabine. You can play tempo. You can do all these ambush craziness. You have a Saboteur leader. These Sentinels no longer stop you.
That's a good point.
If they're just gonna gum up the ground with these, Phase 3 Dark Troopers, with these Emperor Royal Guards, just flip out your leader, give her a blaster, and go 6 straight to base.
Yeah.
And also just Tarkintown. Just Tarkintown. Just that should be good enough. What if you wanted to play Sabine Yellow with Tarkintown?
Okay. Yeah, I mean that sounds pretty cool, and I do think it's a very interesting deck. Now, one last point. I believe you said you have a channel of your own where you're actually putting up some
Yes.
footage of this deck in action and doing some commentary to explain the lines and how these games are going. What channel is that? Where can viewers find more on this?
Yeah, so that is Viper Squadron TV on YouTube. It's an old channel that I had for X-Wing miniatures when I played X-Wing, and I've now sort of moved it over to Unlimited, and I've been recording videos when I go out to play at these tournaments, and I sort of, it's a over-the-shoulder camera type thing, so you can see the board and you can see my hand, and I love just sort of talking through, what I think my lines are, what I think about resourcing, my turn zero strategy against a lot of these decks, my sideboarding strategy against a lot of these decks. And so I just break down sort of everything that I'm going through in the moment. I point out, great heads up plays or bad plays by myself, and sort of give tips and tricks on if you want to pick up this deck but you don't know how it functions, you can just watch one of my games, and you can just see, oh, like I want to know how this deck works in a Django. Well, this past weekend I played a Django in Swiss and I played a Django in the final, so you can see how I played against those Djangos if you want to learn those lines. And you
Nice.
can see how well it does into these other meta decks.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds really cool. So I'm gonna put a link in the video description below here to that Viper Squadron TV channel. So if you're interested in seeing some of that gameplay and strategic commentary, yeah, just go ahead and take a look. Thanks again, Crispy, for coming here and doing this interview. Is there anything else you want to share with the viewers before we close it out?
I just want to shout out two groups. First off, KTOD. Their Fennec Aggro channel has been where I've been doing a lot of the talking with a lot of people who are also interested in Fennec. We love supporting each other, seeing each other grow, and this is where we come up with a lot of these ideas for siding and going into other decks, and we do like town halls, doing full like discussions and breakdowns of how we're adjusting to the meta. And so that's a really really supportive group, and got to shout out KTOD for setting that up. And secondly, the Bothan Network is where I do a lot of my playtesting. They've got a lot of great people that go on there, a lot of really strong players that are free to play, and I do a lot of testing there. I put in my deck against some of the best players and some of the best decks, and it's a lot of fun, and it's definitely helped me get better as a player and helped me hone this deck.
Yeah, I think both KTOD and Bothan Network have some good community stuff for people that are interested in kind of, taking that next step in competitive play and interacting with more of the competitive side of the community. So yeah, I'll give them a shout out as well, I suppose.
Yeah. And then I'll try to be reviewing my videos tomorrow, and I'll have them up sometime Thursday.
Yeah, so yeah, that's going to be, I think that's going to be cool to check out. So for those viewers who want to see not just the deck and the discussion that we've just had, but see the gameplay, check out that Viper Squadron channel for some more on that. All right, I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you again, Crispy, for coming on here and providing this information
No
to the
problem.
viewers. Congratulations on your win, and we'll be back later with
Thank
some
you.
more Star Wars Unlimited content. I will catch you guys later.